Mizzou hosting a top 15 matchup in Columbia for the first time since 1979, hosting number 8 Alabama. A lot on the line this weekend here, I think, for both teams. Obviously, a bigger test for Missouri, one that they haven't faced all season long, and now really getting to see their true colors. And the test is coming in the form of Alabama 4-1 on the season. To take a look at this Alabama team, we're joined by Joe Gaither of Alabama Crimson Tide on SI. Joe, we appreciate you joining us here today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, guys. I know we're all excited about a big SEC game this Saturday.
Absolutely. So let's start with this, Joe. I mean, Alabama, they lose to Florida State by 2 possessions in that week 1 game. And obviously from the outside, the sky is falling in Tuscaloosa. I think it's interesting to consider that game and what they've done for the rest of the season here now, because I don't think you can completely throw that game out. But clearly, Alabama has improved since then. Just what is your assessment of how Alabama has improved, and also how that Florida State game fits into the picture of that?
Well, you definitely need to take the Florida State game in context, and it is certainly a data point for the season. I think this coaching staff, the Alabama coaching staff, has really prided itself over the last year and a half since they've taken over for Coach Saban in being able to scout an opponent and put together a strong game plan. And in that opening game, you just had so much newness. Both new coordinators on Florida State, offensive and defensive coordinators, were brand new. You brought in 16 transfers that ultimately started for Florida State. And I think there was just so much newness that it kind of got away from you too quickly. That combined with bringing in a brand new starting quarterback on the road in an intimidating environment. That was the first time that Florida State Stadium had been open post a construction project. So I think there was a real sense of hunger down in Tallahassee, and you just had a lot of things to overcome, and things started to stack up against you. In particular for Alabama, you struggled getting after stopping the run. You struggled stopping the run, and you couldn't really generate a consistent running game yourself. And I think Ty Simpson was uncomfortable at playing quarterback in that first week. After the game, Kalen DeBoer essentially said, Ty Simpson, when he sees it, he's got to go ahead and rip it. He's got to trust his reads and take the passes that are there, insinuating that he might have pulled it down too early and scrambled too quickly. And he does have athletic ability to move the football with his legs, but this coaching staff wants him to read the progression and get the ball out in a passing format. And he wasn't able to do that really effectively in the Florida State game. You ended up having you lost your defensive starter. You're probably your best defensive player before the game, a couple days before the game with an ankle injury. So just a lot of factors stacked up against you in that first week. And yeah, as you said, the sky was falling around here for about 5 or 6 days, and they came back and they answered a lot of questions against ULM. But ULM, not good competition. You ended up beating them 73-0. You got the ground game going, but it's really kind of been a struggle still on the ground since then, and up until this past week against Vanderbilt. So there's still a lot of questions to be answered, but the team has improved, particularly under center. Ty Simpson has just looked lights out, really, ever since that Florida State trip. You played a really, really effective game against ULM. You played almost perfect against Wisconsin, and then you go on the road and into an intimidating environment over in Athens, and the first half was magnificent. The second half, the game's flow kind of went a little differently. You were kind of trying to ice the game and melt the clock. You weren't as aggressive getting down the field, but Ty Simpson was still able to do that. And then this past week, you ended up having your first Ty Simpson big error with an interception on the first drive of the game. Took 4 sacks in the game, so not so good, but bounced back from the interception and led a beautiful 2-minute drive to tie the game at 14, and some halftime adjustments were made, and Alabama able to get its second SEC victory against this season against Vanderbilt. So I think a lot of improvement has happened since that first week. I think particularly you can point to Ty Simpson being the most improved part of the team. You're still looking for who's going to play offensive line. You've rotated in up to 9 different players, 7 this past Saturday in critical critical moments, but rotated a lot on the offensive line. You got Jam Miller back from a preseason injury, so you're getting Jam and Tim Keenan back on the offensive and defensive side of the football. Really, really helped both units improve. And so, yeah, a lot of improvement from that first week, but it was a black mark. And I think there are still areas that Missouri can exploit from that first week and from the Georgia game and even some of this Vanderbilt matchup that Missouri is going to be able to try to lean on to give Alabama trouble this weekend up in Columbia.
Right. Yeah. I think Alabama is a especially interesting team because of what you mentioned of the questions that still remain about them, but also the results are kind of undeniable. They go in and beat Georgia. They take care of business against Vanderbilt, like you're supposed to if you're going to be a team at the top of the SEC. The middle competition like Vanderbilt, even though Vanderbilt is, above what people expected, you're supposed to take care of them. You're supposed to win 30-14 like they ended up doing and overcome those mistakes. But again, like you said, there are still areas where Missouri can circle on the game plan, even barring, the considering the competition Missouri has faced so far. There's areas Missouri can circle on that Alabama game plan and say we should be better than Alabama in this area. Michael, what have your thoughts been watching Alabama through these first few weeks of the season here, and in particular taking this Missouri bye week to watch them against Vanderbilt?
I like what Joe said, and really it's kind of hard not to be fixated on what Ty Simpson has done over these last couple weeks. And I thought it was interesting what Eli Drinkwitz said about him on Tuesday and just his ability to kind of pick apart zone coverage. I asked Clark Lee about it, Vanderbilt's head coach, about it here on Wednesday at the SEC media call, and he said the same thing. But even when they moved away from those zone coverages and threw different stuff at them, he was still able to make effective throws and show his athletic ability a little bit, which people are talking about, but I feel like that probably goes a little bit unnoticed when we're talking about what Ty Simpson brings to the table. Very good there. He doesn't necessarily have to show it all the time. I think Alabama's offensive line has been pretty incredible so far this season, even if they are rotating players like Joe said. But no, yeah, Ty Simpson's obviously been really, really impressive. I think the defense has been great. I find it kind of funny that I know Jim Miller was hurt up until recently, but they have played like 5 or 6 running backs this season, and all of them have had a good game at some point, which I doubt, anyone more than Jim Miller, and maybe I think it's Kevin Riley behind him is going to have to do a whole bunch, but they have that depth there. Obviously, the receiving core, we haven't mentioned Ryan Williams yet, Jeremy Bernard, and Horton, and Latsier Brooks has been good. The list goes on and on and on there. So it's a different Alabama team. I feel like it's not a different style, but I feel like nationally they're maybe perceived a little bit differently, but they still have like the typical talent of an Alabama football team, your 4 and 5 star talent, and so many playmakers. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for sure, but I'm curious / excited to see what the Missouri defense and what Corey Batoon throws at Ty Simpson to make him uncomfortable. Because I feel like if you can put him in some of those pressure situations and simulate maybe what Florida State did a little bit in week 1, kind of throw some looks at him and throw some pressure at him, make him uncomfortable, that might be an area where, like we said, they can exploit and, maybe force him into some bad decisions.
Let's talk about that Alabama passing game because, like the both of you have mentioned, I mean, Ty Simpson is playing like arguably the best player in all of college football through the past few weeks of the season. And that wide receiver core, like you mentioned, Michael, is really deep. I think a really diverse skill set as well. I mean, Ryan Williams, so overall with the Alabama passing game, but with Ryan Williams, also an interesting study this season because he's had issues with drops. They brought out rugby balls at Alabama practice over this past week to test that. He's moved inside to the slot, I would imagine. I mean, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, that has to do with bringing in Horton, and then you can move Ryan to the slot and utilize that speed and his ability after the catch. Just what has Alabama been doing well in the passing game so far this season?
I think what Alabama's been doing pretty well in the passing game is keeping your eyes in different places. As soon as you zero in on Jeremy Bernard, well, you're going to get an Isaiah Horton pass. When as soon as you zero in on him, you're going back to Ryan Williams. There's just too many options in the passing game, and Josh Cuevas underneath playing tight end has been a pretty reliable target as well. Hurdled a Vanderbilt defender last week, and he was the option on 4th and 7 last week when Alabama really needed to make a drive happen in the first half. So I think what they've been doing is just keeping all the looks mixed up pretty consistently. Yeah, you mentioned Ryan has been playing the slot, but he's still on the outside as well in certain situations. I think Alabama, Ryan Grubb and Caleb DeBoer really still like their 12 personnel, and so that ends up bumping a wide receiver off the field. You're playing Cuevas and Caleb Edwards, or Cuevas and Jay Lindsey at tight end, or even Cuevas and Danny Lewis Jr. at tight end. And so you end up getting two tights on the field. Well, you're playing Jeremy and Ryan, or you're playing Ryan and Isaiah, or Isaiah and Jeremy on the outside, and you just got so much like without being hyperbolic, I think that's 3 NFL receivers, and it might even be 3, first 2 rounds receivers out there. So it becomes a really, really big challenge for a secondary. Ryan, he's struggled with drops, and he talked about it this week, talking about, I'm trying to get my eyes upfield too quickly. I'm not looking it in too much. I think he was very clearly uncomfortable in the slot in the first week against Florida State, and everybody saw it on national TV. And then against Georgia, goes through the slot and drops a pass that would have been a touchdown on the opening drive of the game. And so he's got some pretty big drops. Against Wisconsin was electric, taking a screen and then operating out of the slot, running kind of a slot fade, using the wide side of the field, and Ty Simpson kind of just put it out there. He used his body to shield a defender, and from there it was just Ryan Williams magic after the catch. He still dropped a pass that was in the end zone, so he should have had 3 touchdowns against Wisconsin. Last week he ended up with right at 100 yards and a touchdown, but a drop still to his name. So you still have a lot of really high production, but you're maybe fearful that Ryan's going to drop a pass in a key moment. Ty's been really, really on point the last 4 weeks, being able to read coverage, manipulate the pocket, and that's really what he's shown since that Florida State game to be adept at, is read what the defense is doing, kind of get Alabama into the right play. Maybe if the Memorial Stadium Faurot Field crowd gets really, really loud, that becomes hard. They used 3 timeouts against Georgia in the first quarter on the first 2 drives to make sure that they didn't get false starts or make sure that they had the right play on. But once they did figure out that they had the right play, well, Ty Simpson was a surgeon. So I think the passing game is Alabama's most strongest area of the team, offensively and defensively, and Ty's a huge part of that. But really, it's about those 3 receivers and not being able to have enough coverage plan, and not being able to have a good coverage plan to get all 3 guys under control. If you get one guy, okay, that's good. The other 2 guys are going to have some sort of a route package, a 2-man game, and okay, Ryan will clear out and Jeremy will run an out route and he'll end up wide open on an out, or vice versa. They use those guys so well in route combinations to where I think it makes it kind of not easy for Ty, but easier for Ty. Pretty simple for him to just read the numbers and find the open guy. He had a great touchdown pass against Jeremy Bernard, where he had basically double clear outs to the middle, and Jeremy Bernard had a deep dig. And as the middle is clearing out, well, Jeremy Bernard is a route technician, so he's running that deep dig, and he's coming right wide open, and he was able to run after the catch. And on the 2-minute drill, he throws one up to Isaiah Horton down the sideline, and he's a big body guy. He catches it, and then late to finish off the drive, it's cover 2, and he finds Jeremy Bernard right there in the hole shot. And I think Ty's just playing really, really confidently right now, and those 3 receivers being in the right place at the right time is a huge part of that.
Right. I'm interested to see how this Missouri defense plays against these wide receivers, because I really think Alabama, Alabama is only 1 possession favorites in this game, and according to some places, less than a touchdown. But the one way where I could see Alabama just blowing this game up and putting Missouri in a situation that Missouri has not been in so far this season, and situation Missouri does not want to be in, and just with the style of play they play with, is if Alabama can really just consistently paper cut the South or the Missouri defense with especially the intermediate passing game. And the reason I say interested to see how Missouri plays against this is because obviously the back end of the Missouri secondary has been pitiful, to call it what it is. It's been interesting. I mean, they've, if you look at the stats, their pass defense, they've allowed the 10th fewest passing yards in the country. And it's like, well, I mean, they played against Louisiana. They've played against Louisiana was a team dealing with their backup quarterback in UMass as well. Like, you got to consider the competition in that. And when they played against Kansas and South Carolina, the amount of deep passes let up, and it wasn't like, I mean, there was a few really good catches made by South Carolina receivers, but there was also like quite a few that were just bad coverage busts. And so if Alabama can open that up, that's going to be a real issue. I think that's the most vulnerable part of this Missouri team. But Ty Simpson has especially found some really good rhythm in the intermediate passing game. So do they try to rely on that, especially if Missouri is playing so fearful of that deep pass, and that could really open up that area of the field for Alabama. Michael, any other thoughts on Alabama's receiving core and how Missouri might try to defend that?
No, I just think Bernard and Ryan Williams is a really good, 1-2 punch or 1A, 1B duo. I don't think one of them is like extraordinarily like over the other, but they both bring very different things to the table. So for a Mizzou secondary that's really like brutally honestly struggled and is one of the, biggest red flags, if not the biggest red flag on the team, it's got to be a little bit scary knowing that you're going against a quarterback of that skill level and some enough talented receivers to get burned, especially with Ryan Williams. I mean, I feel like he's still, you mentioned the hands, I feel like route running wise he's still growing and is maybe not as fluid or technical as he could be, but he's got the speed and he can go over the top. Bernard's a great route runner. Horton can go over the top. So I mean, if that's that's something that certainly could be opened up, and I think South Carolina took advantage of that a little bit, but probably could have taken advantage of it more. And maybe there was a few bad breaks there, but they could have taken advantage of that more. If that's something that Ty Simpson can take advantage of, and they can capitalize on those passes, whether it's scoring off them or leading to a touchdown drive or just taking time off the clock or sealing the game or whatever that is. I feel like that could kind of, like you said, put the Missouri defense in a completely different / unique position from what they've been in all season. I don't know we're gonna talk about defense here in a second, but pressuring Ty Simpson is probably going to be the key to this game. I know he's good at evading pressure and he's good at making off schedule throws, but Zion Young and Damon Wilson are really going to have to be at the top of their game, I think, because if you give Ty Simpson the time and you give these receivers the time to get open, it seems like a really bad combination, especially for this Missouri secondary. So I think that's going to be really important as well.
Yes, I feel like, I mean, watching Ty Simpson play, especially a few plays he had against Vanderbilt, it's almost like keeping a toddler in line. Like, if you give him an inch of leeway, if you give him a second too much, he's going to take a mile and make a big play, it seems. And so I really think that's going to be Missouri's saving grace to a certain extent on defense, is their pass rush. And Joe, you hinted at a little bit there of what Alabama's got going on the offensive line, because it wasn't too long ago that Ryan Grubb said, we're still trying to figure out that best five. They have at right guard specifically, Jaden Roberts was listed as a co-starter there. Didn't see any playing time against Vanderbilt. I think part of that was because of an injury. What is the deal for the Alabama offensive line? And is it a reason for concern, or is it truly a situation of we have a lot of talented guys and we want to find out what the best combo is?
Yeah, it's a reason for concern for sure, because you've had two guys that have played most of the snaps in two spots, Caden Proctor at left tackle and Parker Brailsford at center. And Caden has been up and down, but much better over the last 3 weeks. Really a lot better over the last 3 weeks. Pretty pretty not so hot against Florida State, in my opinion, and just kind of meh against ULM and Wisconsin, but much better against Georgia and Vanderbilt. And part of that's due to, I mean, he's told us that he's been losing weight. So he said he's at 359 now. It said he lost 20 pounds. So he was starting the season in the 375, 380 range. And so a little tough for him to deal with the speed rushers, and a little tough, I think, for him to drive off the football, get into a good stance and drive off the football. So they're working on Caden's weight, and he's really been a mainstay at left tackle, and Parker's been the mainstay at center. You've rotated both guard spots on the right tackle all year long. You started with Cam Dewberry at left guard. Cam's come out, and you've used Gino Vandermark as backup left guard. You've used William Sanders, redshirt freshman, as a backup right guard, left guard. Right guard has been Gino Vandermark basically starting the whole year, but you've rotated out Jaden Roberts, and you've rotated more recently, the last couple of weeks, starting right tackle Wilkin Formby from right tackle to right guard. You've played Wilkin Formby at right tackle, and you've played five-star freshman Michael Carroll at right tackle. Like, you've used 9 different offensive linemen. I think I hit all 9 right there. Jackson Lloyd seen a little bit of time at left tackle, but really only when Caden Proctor's doing those funky things on offense, like catching screen passes or running the ball out of the backfield. So you've used Jackson just a little bit, but more so just in gimmick situations. I think it's a huge problem for Alabama, because you haven't really run the ball at all this whole year. Yeah, the number against Vanderbilt was 146, and Jam did get over 100, first running back over 100 in a game this year. And so 146 is your season high against a Power 4 opponent. I think the ULM game was, 237, somewhere right in that range. And a lot of that, I mean, you ripped off freshman AK Deer, ripped off a 75-yarder in the fourth quarter. So you haven't run the ball really well at all. And look at Missouri's front seven. Look at Missouri's numbers in total defense and in run defense. It's basically, you ain't running here. What you hold South Carolina to negative yardage and Kansas to like 30 yards, or vice versa. It was one of those ways. So
Right.
your opponents, you've held them pretty much without any running game at all. I do have confidence in Ty's ability to play quarterback, but it's a whole lot easier when you can run the football. You protected Ty pretty well this year, the offensive line. Throughout the first game, you're having some issues, communication, and Florida State kind of got after them. This game against Vanderbilt, I really think, was more about Ty holding on to the football too long rather than the offensive line giving up sacks. He rolled out a couple times, and he tried to make a couple plays happen and just kind of let the play go too long, didn't throw the ball away, or didn't tuck and run. So really, the pass protection's been strong through the whole season, in my opinion. Yeah, Georgia dialed up some blitzes, dialed up some pressures, but Ty was getting the ball out before Georgia could even get home. He was that impressive. So really, I think the offensive line in pass protection has been fairly strong, but in run blocking, extremely weak, especially in an SEC context. And so you're going up on the road this week. Yeah, you're hoping that the Alabama offensive line can build off of what they did this past week against Vanderbilt. But Vanderbilt's run defense wasn't very strong anyways going into the game. Missouri's is. So I think it's a huge challenge for Alabama's offensive line, helping Ty Simpson by getting the run game going.
So I think that's an interesting transition to talking about the Missouri offense, because they've also had some fluctuation along the offensive line. It's not been 9 guys that they've been trying to figure out. It's been, 6, 7 due to injury. It seems like now at right guard, they're going to be settled with Curtis Peeler there. Kind of the Tristan Wilson experiment, if it was an experiment of any kind, is over. And then the big question for the Missouri offensive line is going to be whether or not Caden Green can play in this game, dealing with that lower body injury. Eli Drinkwitz told us Tuesday that Caden Green will be listed as questionable on Wednesday, and then they won't know until the end of the week. That's a huge question for this game. And like you said, as far as for Alabama, the problem, they've been good in pass protection. It's kind of been the opposite for Missouri, where they've been, Ahmad Hardy, he doesn't really need much protection, but they've been solid there. But in the pass game, have had some issues. It's led to 2 problems. Obviously, one, the natural part of having bad protection, of there is pressure, but then also too, Bo Prabula is playing. I don't want to say he's playing scared, but he's been trained now to have to look down in front of him constantly instead of looking ahead of him. Look at the play develop, and also not only looking at the offensive line, but also at the first sign of pressure. He's like Pavlov's dog. There's a fear reaction instilled in him now, where he's dancing around and trying to create stuff when he doesn't need to be a magician. And so, I mean, Joe, tell us about this Alabama defense. I know last year it seemed like the pass rush was kind of a premier part of it. Still, I mean, they still got LT Overton in the department, but not their strongest part of this Alabama defense. What have they been doing well so far this season? How do you think they match up with Missouri?
I think it's a huge question because I think Ahmad Hardy is probably the best running back in the SEC. And you kind of extrapolate the first handful of games, Florida State, Georgia, and Vanderbilt in particular, the running back in the running game was able to get going in all three of those games. Now, Alabama shut down Vanderbilt after basically a quarter and a half in the run game. They ended up having a couple of really strong drives, and Cedric Alexander, 75-yard touchdown run is kind of the exclamation point. But outside of that, they were able to make some adjustments and slow down Vanderbilt's running game. I think that you look at the Georgia game, Chauncey Bowens was able to rip off 3, 4, 5 big runs, and they ended up hitting Dylan Bell with a fake reverse for 40, 45 yards as well. So Georgia ended up with over 200 yards rushing, but 7 of those plays came on explosive plays. It's either feast or famine for Alabama in the run defense. It's Alabama stopping the opposing team for 1 yard, -1 yard, 2-yard situation, or not filling their gaps, and it's going for 15 plus. And so I still feel pretty shaky about Alabama defending the run. You've lost Quay Russoff for an extended period of time. You're starting Wolf. You've lost him, and you're turned to Yanzi Pierre, who was a 5-star talent out of high school, and everybody's been excited about him, and he's in his third year in the program, second now in the system. And so he performed well this past week, and he's become a pass rushing demon, really. They've used him early on in the season to kind of get after him in pass rushing situations. But I am concerned about Yanzi playing full-time, especially holding up in run defense. I'm concerned still about the inside linebacker play. I know that Justin Jefferson won the Bednarik Player of the Week and had a great week. Look at the numbers, 14 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble on Pavia. But I don't really love the way either of the inside linebackers play the run, Deontay Lawson and Justin Jefferson. I think they are very prone to catching running backs instead of attacking and tackling running backs. I think they're both very prone to guessing in run gaps, and that spells disaster with an outside run zone scheme. So I'm pretty concerned when you're talking about Ahmad Hardy. And Bo Pribula might be playing scared in the pass game, but if they can keep it on the ground and utilize his running ability as well, you may not have to ask him to throw the football down the field too much. When the ball is getting thrown into the air, I like the Alabama secondary a lot. I think Damani Jackson plays well. Damani getting beat in the Georgia game, people will see that highlight, but that was really more of a schematic issue rather than a him playing with bad technique issue. The back end of the team, when the ball was in the air, Keon Sabb getting an interception this past week. Bray Hubbard's playing really, really well. Zay Mincy is playing really well. Xavier Brown at corner is playing well. You're mixing in 5-star cornerback Dijon Lee just a little bit as well. So you've got a lot of talent on the back end, but I'm still very, very concerned about Alabama's ability to stop the run consistently. Yeah, they can do it on first down, but if Eli Drinkowitz is consistent and creative and patient by calling the run game, moving Alabama's eyes all over the place, kind of getting them out of position, moving the gaps as well in his zone system, I think Ahmad Hardy might be in for a very, very big day.
That's really interesting what you mentioned about Alabama's inside linebackers in particular. Like you said, with the vision, I mean, you really need that to defend the outside zone run that runs that Missouri do. And Ahmad Hardy is really good at that vision. And also what you said as far as catching linebackers and not being the pursuer of getting those tackles. And again, that's kind of a recipe for disaster against Ahmad Hardy.
Yeah, I mean, you think back to the forced fumble that Justin Jefferson had in this past game. Well, Diego Pavia ran for 8 yards right through the middle, and it was, yeah, you compliment Justin Jefferson for stripping the football out, absolutely. But if Pavia plays with strong ball security right there, if Ahmad Hardy plays with strong ball security right there, well, it's 2nd and 2 for Missouri, and in that case, it's 2nd and 2 for Vanderbilt from like the 6 yard line, and they're still looking to score and go up 14-0. It was a huge play in this past weekend's game because you took the ball back and you kept the score at 7-0, but you made the play 6, 7, 8 yards down the field. And so I think that they are athletic linebackers, very athletic linebackers, and they can get sideline to sideline. But as far as shooting gaps, controlling the gaps, especially when offensive linemen are moving and kind of they're trying to work as a unit, I think they have a real hard time penetrating offensive lines, holding up gaps, and stopping the run game. So for Alabama this week, I'm hoping that Kane Womack has called it run bullets, that he's firing run bullets, calling blitzes to disrupt the run game. I'm hoping for Alabama's sake that Kane Womack has a lot of them in his chamber, and he is calling them, with success. You can't shoot and miss because you might be giving up 50, 60 yards behind you on the other side of the play.
Let's get Michael back in the fold here. I mean, Michael, the thing I keep thinking about going into this game is just the fact that, I mean, Missouri has used its offense as a defense in some sense, like with the run game, as far as everything runs through that run game. They control the pace with their offensive run game. I mean, how do you think? I mean, we were talking earlier about how Alabama can blow this game up by making it a shootout where Missouri can't keep up in. But if Missouri is able to run the ball just as efficiently as they have in the first 5 games of the season, how do you think that is going to change the style of this game? Basically, I mean, what game do you think Missouri wants to play?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to want to replicate the exact game plan they've done the first 5 games this season. Exactly what you said. I think they've been able to control the pace of each game, even when they were down against Kansas and things against South Carolina. Were a little closer. They still controlled the pace and controlled possession of that game, at least for a good chunk of it, even when they were losing. So they're going to feed Ahmad Hardy all game long. I mean, if you want to talk about blowing the game open, I think that's probably going to be Bo Perbula's responsibility for on Missouri side of things. I agree with Joe with what you said. I mean, they're going to probably do everything in their power, especially at this point in the season. There's enough film on Ahmad Hardy where, teams are going to start. I'm not saying they're going to limit him, but they'll at least throw something different at him to make sure that there's something they can do to stop it, whether it's blitzing or whatever that looks like. So, I don't think they're going to change anything. I think it's going to be the same slower pace, give it to Ahmad and let him do his thing. I don't think they're going to try to change anything. But, I mean, that plays in exactly to what they want to do. But if we're talking about how they can blow the game open, then it's going to be Bo Perbula's responsibility. I don't know how well he matches up with this Alabama secondary. I think they're pretty solid, so that'll be interesting there. But I mean, I think a lot of the offensive success is going to be on Bo to make sure that he can figure things out on his end. But in terms of just being consistent and keeping the offense rolling, I mean, I don't really know if I don't know if I see anyone stopping Ahmad Hardy, honestly. But Alabama, I think they're going to have a hard time with it.
I like what you mentioned there about Bo, because really at this point in the season, I mean, of course, just like the rest of the team, Amada has only played against 2 Power 4 defenses. But the thing I keep coming back to is like Kansas, North, South Carolina, that didn't change. He had this exact same success against both those teams that he did against the UMass and Louisianas of the world. But for the passing game, and we talked about this after the game against UMass, like Bo Perbula, I think is still a question as far as like, there's no doubt he's good. He's capable of being a starting quarterback, but can he figure that out? His decision making, can he figure out that pocket awareness? How does he deal with that? And then also the deep passing game, because I think we saw, especially against UMass, like Missouri just felt no reason to test that deep passing game at all. It's because, I mean, UMass and Louisiana were both playing feared for their life for Bo Bueller to throw it anything past 15 yards. And so Missouri said, okay, well, that's fine. So I'm interested to see. I think this is a game where you should open up that playbook. And like you said, I mean, this Alabama defense should be playing, fearing for Ahmad Hardy, and that can definitely open things up for Missouri that we haven't seen so far this season. One last question for you, Joe. I mean, if you had to boil this down to one reason why Alabama will win this game, or one reason why Alabama would lose this game, what comes to mind for you?
My biggest reason why Alabama might win this game is looking at the turnover margin of the two teams. Alabama, I think, is +9, +10, first in the nation in turnover margin. Only turned it over one time, and it was this past week on the first drive against Vanderbilt. Not that Missouri's turned the ball over a lot, but their turnover margin is 0, tied for 69th in the country. Given 4 away, gotten 4. And if you can get Bo Pribula, I think you're going to see a lot of zone coverage from Kane Womack. A lot of we're looking at Bo trying to make you read the play, and if he does want to escape, everybody's going to try to converge on him. Mobile quarterbacks have given Alabama a lot of trouble dating back even to the Saban days. But if you can get him to throw it into traffic and turn a football over, I think that that can spell some danger for Missouri, particularly with the problems that you kind of outlined offensively. I do think Alabama's run game is getting better. Is it good enough to really wear down or impact the number 1 rush defense in the country? I don't know. I think that's probably one of your biggest questions in the whole game. But if Alabama's going to win, they're going to win the turnover battle, and really Ty Simpson's going to play clean and probably outduel Bo Pribula. Losing the game, though, is exactly the opposite of that. Defensively is not being able to slow down. If you can't make Missouri go to plan 1B at least, ideally plan B and plan C, but if you can't make them get to the second page of their playbook where they're saying, well, Ahmad Hardy's not as successful today, Bo Pribula, you got to be the quarterback that we paid you to come in and be. If Ahmad Hardy goes off for 148, 165, and they keep the ball on the ground and they're eating the clock and they're maximizing their possessions, then I think it becomes a pretty hard day for Alabama's offense to keep up, especially if they can't run the ball at all. I do like what Ty has done, but you've got to figure out ways to not make the game all on Ty Simpson. At Georgia, Ryan Grubb was just a master at using the screen games, getting Jeremy Bernard involved in the run game, using Jeremy Bernard to throw passes. I mean, they moved him all over the formation. They probably called a dozen and a half screens because they couldn't run the football, and there were a dozen and a half different types of screens. And so for Alabama, if you lose this game, it's because you weren't able to get the run game going or get an extension of the run game going by the screens, and you weren't able to stop the run.
All right, I think this is going to be a really exciting game. Like I said at the top, meaningful one for both teams, meaningful tests here. So appreciate you hopping on, Joe, and hope everybody goes check out your coverage over at BamaOnSI.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's going to be a great weekend.